Hello, Steve White, TrekBoy89 for Steve Arts 89. AXANAR. There's still a lot of drama with AXANAR. Now, I did a video about this, a couple of videos about this. Like, it was a big drama, 2017 or 18, I think. Basically, this guy, Alec Peters, and Meyer Burnett put together, with a lot of other people's help, the Prelude to AXANAR, which was basically a faux documentary about a war, a Klingon war with the Federation. And this was before Discovery. And they were going to do a feature film that was going to cover everything that was mentioned in the documentary. It was very clever because doing a documentary is very easy. They got some good actors. They just filmed some random scenes, some great effects, and they put it together. And it really looked good and was really effective and got past a lot of the issues that you have with fan films, and looked really professional and really good quality, and everyone was excited about it. They raised a lot of money, and then Paramount stepped in and sued them and created the fan film guidelines, which basically shut down any fan film productions because you're limited to 2 15-minute segments at the most. You can only raise a certain amount of money. You have to only use officially licensed props and costumes, which of course there's just a lot of creative limitations, which a lot of people have problems with, and I don't blame them. I think they're just ridiculous. Fan films usually don't make any money off the productions. They just do it for the love of it, for other fans to enjoy, because the studios won't do what we want. So, and they stopped doing that a long time ago, about 15 years ago. And during this this vast wasteland, this drought of Star Trek, after Enterprise was cancelled, we had it filled with a lot of really good Star Trek fan productions. Some not so good, but some really good ones like New Voyages, which then became Phase 2 and continues. And there's a whole bunch of other ones like New Voyages, Final Frontier, and a whole bunch of other ones. And they're all interesting, different degrees of quality. Now, the thing with AXANAR was, like I said, they were sued, and there's two versions of this story that I heard. The first was that Alex was a crook. He was just basically raising the money so he could build a studio, so then he could make the film, but then keep making money off the studio and sort of earn a living through making films through the studio or something. And that seemed, a lot of people were saying that was the line that was crossed, that the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's why Paramount went after them and CBS went after them. I think it was more to do with the fact that it was based in the same time period as Discovery, and was about a Klingon war, and it looked like it was going to be as good as, like a real production, and in hindsight better than Discovery. So I think they banned it for that reason. Had it been made a year or two before, I think it would have gone through without any issues, and it would have been just the best quality version. There have been some that have been skirting on making money off the IP, basically ones where they're selling merchandise from the stuff they've created for the show, even though it's a Star Trek show and it's inspired by Star Trek and things like that. And but one thing I saw that Alec Peters said was that they didn't make a studio. They hired a warehouse or some space, adapted it to be a studio, and they were going to rent it out while they weren't using it in between productions to pay the rent. So I don't really see that as such a big crime if that's what he really did, because he didn't build an independent studio that he could make money off. He basically fixed up a space to use as a studio and was finding ways to keep it so he could continue making fan films and pay the rent in the meantime. That seems kind of reasonable to me. The idea that he got all this money and then just ran out and built a whole studio for like $1 million or whatever they raised, and was just going to be an independent like studio or film producer or something, seemed a bit remarkable for that amount of money in that short period of time to establish. So I'm not really buying that, although I just assumed it was true at the time. But he claims he was basically bankrupted by, and this is all allegedly rumours and just things I've heard and articles and that, He supposedly was bankrupted by the trial because him and Meyer Burnett basically had to go to court. I think it took a whole year to resolve, and it came out with guidelines, and they were able to continue with AXANAR but under the current guidelines. Some shows were able to grandfather the episodes that were in production because fans, they take money to produce them by fans, so I think they were allowed to finish them because otherwise there'd be all the legal problems of the people wanting their money back, and they're already in production, so they got to finish them. So Continues got to do 11 episodes. It planned 13 apparently, so there's only 2 they missed out on doing, and they managed to give it a good ending, which is a good ending for the series overall, like Star Trek overall. It's like a 4th season of the show. New Voyages, unfortunately, Phase 2, they had 2, I think, shows in the pipeline that weren't finished. One had Richard Hatch playing a character. It was his last performance, and everyone wanted that to see the light of day and be finished. And last thing I heard, they had one person, because they were limited by how many people could work on the production and different areas of the production, and they couldn't be professional. They had one person doing the effects, and they had about 700 or 800 shots to do. And basically, because it was all filmed, you just had to finish the shots and release it. I've heard they're not going to do it. That's too much effort, it's too much money, or it's not going to be finished is what I've heard. I hope that's not true, because it's already filmed. They just have to do the effects. It's just a matter of how long it takes someone to do it. They don't have to be amazing, they just have to be finished. And there was another one they started to film, they had problems with. They never explained what happened there, so they didn't finish all their ones. But basically, the lawsuit shut it down. I understand why it would have cost him money, and the argument now is he had to fundraise again to finish it. So I'm like, okay, you took everybody's money and got sued and spent it all on court apparently, and setting up the studio that you can't use or haven't used. And then you have to raise more money to give them these 2 short films, which are only 15 minutes. So they've somehow managed to make this whole epic 90 to 2 hour film into 30-minute 2 segments. I don't know how they're doing that. I'd heard they were doing more than that somehow, or maybe they were counting Prelude as which is already done as a 3rd one. But I at one point heard they were getting away with 3. Because somehow they were making them different enough, or different eras or something, so they could tell a whole sort of large story. I'm not sure what happened with that. It might have been just someone's assumption or whatever. But I saw this online and I commented on it. It was about the time of one of the previews, I think. And Alec actually came online and was trying to talk to me, and I just ignored it because I'm like, I don't want to deal with him. I've seen him in interviews. I just don't want to deal with him. I don't know enough. I'd have to research, and before I could speak to him, I just didn't answer him. He tried to contact me a few times because of a few comments I'd made. I don't know if he saw my video. I doubt it. I just reckon he saw the comments because they would have gone on his Facebook page for AXANAR. And it just seemed really dodgy. It just seemed like you just keep taking money and producing nothing. And I basically said, is this ever going to be finished? Was it ever going to be done? Or were you just taking people's money, like some sort of pyramid scheme where you keep taking money and never actually deliver anything because it's just the direction the money goes? And then I just saw online yesterday Meyer Burnett, who I don't have a lot of respect for him, because during the Black Lives Matter protests he was upset that black policemen had been killed, and he basically said, just shoot them all, shoot all the protesters. Which of course includes genuine protesters and Black Lives Matter protesters and black people, not just, he was just saying he wasn't distinguishing between rioters, white people coming in to cause trouble, white supremacist people coming in to cause trouble and make it look like the riots are worse, and all this sort of stuff that was happening, along with actual black people rioting out of rage or whatever, and just shoot everyone, including the real protesters. And I thought that was disgusting, and he didn't really take it back. He just sort of explained it as I was upset, and I misspoke, and I didn't really think before I spoke, but he didn't really go back on it. So I sort of cancelled him a little bit. I didn't delete his, I didn't unsubscribe, but I just can't listen to him. He pulled me back in with a video about Star Trek Day and that, and I did watch that. But I'm just wondering about his sincerity with some of the things he's talked about, and things that he said. He was defending cuties. He hadn't seen it yet. That's the only reason why I didn't do a video or carry on about it, and that no one cares because I'm nobody. But he was basically defending it, saying, well, if this woman, this black woman, has decided to talk about this subject, we should respect her voice and artistic expression. And he sort of seemed to hear the argument that people are exploiting the children as a story about exploiting children and just how wrong it is. And he was listening to all that, but he's still sort of saying, I think artistic, we have a right artistically to talk about this sort of subject. I'm like, you're not getting the problem here. They're not talking about it. They're showing it, which then makes it the same as what they're, protesting about or complaining about or exposing or whatever. So I thought that was a bit, sort of spoke to his character as well. And then I just saw some articles, because he also did some videos talking about the unmade AXANAR film, and he showed a lot of footage that was completed or that was being planned, and talking about what we would have done. And he put together a couple of segments. There was a Klingon theme, and he edited together a whole bunch of footage of Klingons and the Ares fighting and that. And that was really interesting. And he sort of there was a theme song that was done, theme music, and they did some other sequences to that as well, some of the animatics, because there's about 6 shots that weren't finished out of a sequence. And then he did another one, which was just some shots of a space station. Now, some of these have made it into the AXANAR previews, but then I was going to do a video about that, because I just want to talk about how interesting they looked and how sad it was the film wasn't going to be made, and a little bit of the history and why it's tragic that it got disrupted. It really should be made artistically, creatively, and also because fans paid for it, they deserve to get something other than patches and stuff. And he's still selling things like patches and mugs and stuff like that for AXANAR, and they're not using the Star Trek title and all this sort of stuff. There are all these ways to get around the guidelines to a certain extent as far as merchandising. And another one they did was Renegades. They've been selling Blu-rays and stuff. Basically, they'll make them and you just pay the postage. And I'm like, there seems to be a lot of weird stuff happening, and I haven't researched it enough to really comment on any of it. But what I just saw that I found was interesting was that Alec Peters actually sued Robert Meyer Burnett last year, which I didn't realise. I don't know how I missed that one. Because supposedly Robert Meyer Burnett had a whole bunch of finished effects and finished work that he was paid to do, apparently, and he wouldn't hand them over. And basically Alec called him a thief. He said he stole property and stole material and stole people's money. He supposedly was loaned money, and I'm like, why would you loan money to someone who's working for you? You would pay them or not pay them. You wouldn't loan them money. It doesn't, I don't know what happened, but apparently he's holding a bunch of things. I don't know if he still has, I don't know how that was resolved, but I just thought that was really fascinating, and I wanted to sort of do some research and work out where it went, because I was just watching the update with AXANAR, and basically they started filming and they got most of the filming done, and they started putting out videos about that, and then the coronavirus hit, they had to stop, and apparently they're planning 2 days of basically actors in front of green screens to finish off the productions with all the stipulations, around social distancing. And then once they get that filming done, it's just a matter of one person or one individual people working on the effects privately, so it will get finished. But I did question if it ever would. And what they are producing is not what they promised, not what people paid for, not what they should have gotten for the money they paid. And I don't know if Alec has actually benefited from this financially or not, but it's just a big mess, and I'm very curious to see some more detail. I'm going to do a bit of research about this. I don't have a video about what I've found, but I just wanted to talk about the Robert Meyer Burnett unmade film video sort of stuff, where he's just talking about the production, and Alec Peters talking about the making of and where they're at with it. It's all kind of interesting, and I'm wondering what we're going to end up with. There's a couple of sort of semi-scenes that have been done. They did a test of the camera on the bridge, and they combined that with some shots and made a little short film, basically, where he's, Garth is basically just walking onto the bridge while it's in space dock and remembering stuff that happened during the battle, because they've got some of the effects scenes finished and stuff. So it kind of looks okay, but it doesn't look the film quality that Prelude to AXANAR promised. And the only limitation they should have is the time. Everything else should be as good as what we were promised, or what we were showing, what we were teased. And I don't think it's going to be. Now, whether that's because they cheaped out, or I heard a lot of the people who were involved left because of either they were scared of being sued by Paramount, or Alec Peters did dodgy things, or Robert Meyer Burnett did dodgy things, and Alec was apparently bullying him online. And there's all this gossip and rumours and allegations, and I don't think anyone listens to me. I don't think anyone cares, but I don't want to get in trouble for saying anything. I don't think I know enough to offend anyone. But I do want to look into it because it's really fascinating. I didn't realise it got that complicated. I thought once they were sued, it was just a matter of raising money and starting again and sort of putting it all together again within the limitations of the guidelines and working out how to do that. So I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know anything you know about AXANAR. I'm just going to keep Googling. I started looking at a few articles, but it was so messy and complicated. I sort of realised I'm not going to get to the bottom of this tonight. And I want to do a video about the shorts that have already been done and that. So that's it. That's done. Yeah. Again, feel free to comment. I like reading people's comments. I want to know if anyone knows anything, but I may take a while to reply because my software is not working on my laptop properly. My YouTube keeps failing on me, and I can't use my computer, so it's taking me a while to get to messages and that, like more than normal. But I'm going to go. Thanks.